Have you ever felt that you are not fully occupying your own life? Like there's a part of you that stands outside, watching, waiting for permission to step into the fullness of who you are. The sensation of waiting, of being on the threshold but never quite crossing over, is not accidental. It is not merely a quirk of fate or a result of circumstance. It is the whisper of something deep inside of you, an ancient inherited belief that you do not belong to your own kingdom. This belief, embedded so deeply in the psyche, is the product of a long-standing historical trauma, a trauma that tells you that you must earn your place, that you must ask for permission to exist. But what if this very waiting, this hesitation to claim your rightful seat, is the key to your transformation? Carl Jung, in his exploration of the psyche, found that we are all born with a core of sovereignty. He called this the self, a center of absolute authority within each of us, untouched by the vicissitudes of life. The self is not the ego, it is not the mask we wear in the world, nor the personality we project to gain validation. No, the self is something far deeper, something beyond the ego's fragile constructions. It is the essence of who we are, the nucleus of our being, the sovereign ruler of our inner world. But most people, Jung observed, spend their lives orbiting this center, never truly inhabiting it, consumed by doubts, fears, and the internalized belief that they are not enough. And so they wait. In Jungian terms, this waiting is the result of an unconscious alignment with the persona, the false self that we project in an attempt to meet the expectations of others, to gain their approval, to survive. But this persona is a mask, an identity we create to protect ourselves from the pain of rejection or abandonment. And so we live, not as sovereigns of our own lives, but as beggars at the gates of our own inner kingdom, hoping for someone to give us the permission to take our rightful place. You may feel the weight of this waiting in your own life, perhaps in your relationships, your career, or in your quest for validation. You may have noticed that no matter how hard you try, the recognition you seek always seems to elude you. And yet, deep inside, you know that something is missing, that there is a throne waiting for you, a seat of power and authority that you have never truly claimed. But what if the key to unlocking this throne does not come from the outside? What if it is not a matter of someone else validating you or offering you the invitation to step into your own power? What if the throne is yours, waiting for you to realize that you have always had the right to sit upon it? This is the great truth that Jung unearthed in his work, the idea that our experience of reality is shaped not by external circumstances, but by our internal stance. The universe responds not to our words, our affirmations, or our vision boards, but to the frequency of our inner state. If we exist in a state of lack, if we constantly beg for recognition or approval, the world will reflect that lack back to us. But if we recognize the inherent sovereignty within us, if we take our rightful place on the throne, reality must respond in kind. This is not arrogance. It is not about demanding or controlling. It is about recognizing the fullness of your being and standing firmly in that truth. The Queen does not ask for what is already hers. She does not beg for permission to exist. She simply is, and the universe responds to that certainty with unwavering precision. Yet, the path to this realization is not an easy one. It requires a radical shift in consciousness, a shedding of the old, false identities that we have clung to for so long. It means letting go of the persona that seeks validation from the outside and stepping into the unknown terrain of the self. This shift can be uncomfortable, even painful, as it requires us to confront the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we have denied, rejected, or repressed. The shadow is the hidden, unacknowledged aspect of the psyche, and it holds the key to our transformation. As we journey deeper into the landscape of the psyche, we begin to encounter the shadow. The shadow is not some external force, but a vital aspect of the self that remains hidden, often buried under layers of denial, shame, or fear. It represents the aspects of our being that we have disowned, parts of ourselves that we have deemed unacceptable, unworthy, or too dangerous to face. The shadow holds the key to the hidden power that lies dormant within us, but it also reflects the wounds we've carried for much of our lives, wounds passed down through generations, shaping the way we see ourselves and the world. Jung believed that every person, at some point, must confront the shadow in order to truly individuate, that is, to realize the fullness of their own being. This confrontation is not a one-time event, but a process, a gradual awakening to the parts of ourselves we have kept locked away. These hidden parts of us often manifest in unexpected ways, through projections, irrational fears, or patterns of self-sabotage. We may notice that we keep attracting the same kind of relationships, the same situations that leave us feeling unseen, unheard, or rejected. These are not accidents. They are reflections of the unconscious material that still controls us. As we begin to recognize these patterns, the shadow begins to speak. It speaks through our emotional reactions, our desires, our fantasies, and even our dreams. If we are willing to listen, we hear the echoes of our woundedness, traces of the unacknowledged pain, unmet needs, and unsatisfied longings that we have been running from. The more we run, the more the shadow gains power, silently steering our lives in directions that feel uncontrollable, as though we are puppets to forces we cannot name. But what if we could stop running? What if, instead of rejecting these parts of ourselves, we could turn toward them with compassion? What if, instead of demonizing the shadow, we could invite it to sit at the table, to be seen, to be acknowledged? This is the heart of the individuation process, a process in which we begin to integrate the parts of ourselves we have cast away. It is a painful and necessary process, one that requires courage and vulnerability. But it is also the gateway to reclaiming our sovereignty. The shadow is not an enemy. It is a repository of untapped power, creativity, and vitality. As Jung often stated, the shadow is the place where gold is hidden. If we are brave enough to face it, to bring its darkness into the light, we discover within it a treasure, a new source of energy, a newfound sense of agency, a deeper connection to the divine within. We realize that the very qualities we once feared or rejected, our anger, our desires, our ambition, are not inherently bad or destructive. They are simply forces that have been misunderstood, misdirected, or distorted by our unconscious beliefs. And here, in the depths of this confrontation with the shadow, we begin to sense a shift. We start to recognize that the patterns we have lived by, the narratives of unworthiness, of waiting for validation, of constantly asking for permission, are not ours by birthright. They are not the truth of who we are. They are the remnants of an old story, an outdated myth that no longer serves us. But this realization does not come without resistance. It is often met with fear. Fear of letting go of the old, fear of stepping into the unknown, fear of standing in our full power. The shadow does not relinquish its grip easily. It wants to keep us small, to keep us in a place of dependency, of need. Yet, this is the moment of choice. Will we continue to stay imprisoned by the beliefs and stories of the past, or will we step forward into the unknown, into the mystery of our own becoming? This choice is not a dramatic one, not a momentous event for others to witness. It is quiet. It is internal. It happens in the silence between breaths, in the space where we stop waiting for permission and instead begin to give ourselves the freedom to be. When we begin to accept the shadow, to integrate the parts of ourselves we have long disowned, we start to reconnect with the lost fragments of our power. It is here, in the shadow, that we encounter the archetypal energies that have been buried within us for so long, the energies of the divine feminine, of the sovereign queen. These archetypes are not abstract concepts. They are alive within us, pulsing with life and potential. The archetype of the queen in particular speaks to the deep well of power that resides within every woman. She is not a ruler who demands obedience from others. She is a ruler of herself, a woman who has claimed her rightful place on the throne of her own life. The queen does not seek validation from the outside. She does not measure her worth by the opinions of others or by the approval of the world. She simply is. She knows her own value, her own authority, and she acts from that place of inner certainty. This is the essence of sovereignty, an internal state of knowing that does not require external affirmation. It is a radical act of self-acceptance, of recognizing that we are enough, exactly as we are. But the journey toward this realization is long, and it requires us to face not only our own shadow, but the collective shadow that has shaped the roles women are expected to play in society. This collective shadow is made up of the limiting beliefs, the patriarchal structures, and the ancestral wounds that have been passed down through generations. These beliefs tell women that they must be small, that they must serve, that they must wait to be chosen. But these beliefs are not the truth of who we are. They are the stories that have been imposed upon us, the conditioning that has been passed down from mother to daughter, from generation to generation. As we confront the collective shadow, we begin to uncover the ancestral patterns that have shaped our beliefs about ourselves and our place in the world. These patterns are not just individual memories, they are imprinted in the collective unconscious, the vast, invisible reservoir of human experience that transcends time and space. Jung believed that the collective unconscious is a shared space where the archetypes, the fundamental symbols and motifs that shape human existence, reside. These archetypes are universal, present in all cultures, all traditions, and in every individual psyche. For women, the collective unconscious carries a particular weight, a lineage of suppressed power, a history of being silenced, diminished, and controlled. The archetype of the feminine has been distorted by centuries of patriarchal narratives that portray women as either passive, subservient figures, or as dangerous, uncontrollable forces. These archetypes are not merely relics of the past. They live in us today, influencing how we see ourselves, how we interact with the world, and how we allow the world to treat us. In the collective unconscious, there is also a deep connection to the maternal archetype, a mother figure that, for many, has been both nurturing and smothering, both supportive and suffocating. Jung described the maternal complex as a powerful force in the psyche, one that shapes how we relate to authority, to love, and to our own sense of self-worth. For many women, this complex manifests as a deep, unspoken belief that their worth must be earned, that love must be won, and that they must prove themselves in order to deserve the fullness of life. This is the maternal conditioning that has been passed down through generations, often unconsciously, and it is this conditioning that keeps many women in a perpetual state of waiting, for permission, for validation, for recognition. But as we embark on the journey of individuation, we begin to see these patterns for what they are, old stories, handed down through time, that no longer serve us. These patterns have shaped how we relate to ourselves and to others, but they are not the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are is far greater than these limiting beliefs. The truth is that we are sovereign beings, capable of creating our own reality, capable of stepping into our full power without waiting for anyone to give us permission. As we begin to shed the layers of conditioning, we come face to face with the father complex, another deeply embedded pattern in the psyche. This complex is rooted in our relationship with the father archetype, which represents not only the actual father but also the larger archetype of authority, structure, and power. For many women, the father complex is a complicated one. It may manifest as a longing for the approval and recognition of the father, a need to be seen and validated by the masculine. It can also show up as a rebellion against authority, a refusal to submit to masculine power because of past wounds or disappointments. This dynamic between the feminine and masculine energies within the psyche is essential to the individuation process. The masculine energy within us represents the active, assertive principle, the drive to create, to build, to shape the world. The feminine energy, on the other hand, is receptive and magnetic, drawing in what is needed and nurturing what has been created. For a woman to become whole, these energies must be integrated, not in competition but in harmony. When we are overly identified with the masculine, we may lose touch with our inner power, becoming driven, competitive, and disconnected from our emotional and spiritual selves. When we are overly identified with the feminine, we may become passive, waiting for life to happen to us, instead of actively creating the life we desire. Jung spoke of the importance of integrating both the masculine and feminine aspects of the psyche, and this integration is a vital part of the individuation journey. It is here, in this sacred union of opposites, that we begin to recognize the fullness of our power. The feminine energy, once wounded, suppressed, and ignored, begins to come to life again. We recognize that we do not need to chase, to demand, to beg for what is ours. Instead, we allow it to come to us naturally, effortlessly, because we know that we are already whole. We stop seeking external validation and start living from a place of internal certainty, from a place of inner authority. This shift in consciousness is subtle, yet it is profound. It is the moment when we stop negotiating with life, stop justifying our existence, stop asking for permission. It is the moment when we realize that we are the creators of our own reality, and that the universe is not a judge but a mirror. The universe reflects back to us the energy we put out into the world, and when we stand in the full truth of who we are, the universe has no choice but to reflect that back to us. But this transformation is not without its challenges. As we begin to claim our sovereignty, we may find that the old patterns of the ego, patterns of fear, self-doubt, and limitation, are still present, lurking in the shadows. These are the remnants of the false self, the persona we have created to survive in a world that often does not understand or support us. But now we are no longer trapped by these patterns. We are able to see them for what they are, temporary, external constructions that have no power over us unless we allow them to. As we move further into the heart of individuation, we begin to experience a profound shift in how we relate to both ourselves and the world around us. The internal tension that once defined our existence between our desires and our fears, between our true selves and the roles we have played, begins to dissolve. This dissolution is not always comfortable. It often feels like a kind of psychological death, a letting go of identities and attachments that no longer serve us. And yet, it is precisely through this surrender that we can step into the fullness of our sovereignty. The ego, that familiar yet fragile sense of self, begins to lose its grip on us. We no longer define ourselves by the roles we play, the external achievements we accumulate, or the approval we seek from others. The inner voice that once echoed with doubt and uncertainty, that constantly measured our worth against others, fades into the background. What takes its place is a quiet, unshakable certainty, the knowing that we are whole, complete, and inherently worthy, not because of anything we have done or achieved, but simply because we are. This is the profound realization at the heart of individuation, that we do not need to prove ourselves. We are not a project to be fixed, nor a story to be rewritten. We are simply beings of inherent worth, expressions of the divine, sovereign in our own right. The queen archetype, which has long been dormant in the unconscious, begins to rise to the surface. She does not ask for permission, for she knows that she has always been worthy of ruling her own life. She does not seek validation from the outside world, because she understands that true power does not come from external sources but from within. But even as we claim our sovereignty, we face the truth that this new way of being may bring a kind of loneliness and emotional distance from others who are not yet ready to step into their own power. This loneliness is not the loneliness of abandonment, it is the loneliness of sovereignty. When we begin to stand in the fullness of our being, we often find that old relationships, old patterns of connection, no longer align with who we have become. The people and situations that once defined our sense of self may begin to fall away, not because we reject them, but because they can no longer resonate with the frequency of our inner truth. This is the paradox of sovereignty. As we step into our full power, we may find that the world around us shifts. Relationships change. People may feel uncomfortable in our presence because we no longer conform to their expectations, their projections, or their needs. And yet, this shift is not a loss. It is a necessary part of the individuation process. We are no longer defined by the external world, by the roles we play, or by the expectations others place upon us. We are free to be ourselves, to create new relationships, new possibilities, and new ways of being. This freedom, however, comes with its own responsibility. To claim our sovereignty is to recognize that we are not victims of circumstance. We are the creators of our lives. Every moment, every decision, every relationship is a reflection of the energy we are broadcasting into the world. If we continue to operate from a place of lack, of fear, or of unworthiness, we will continue to attract situations that mirror those beliefs. But if we stand in our full power, if we claim our inner throne with certainty and grace, the universe must respond accordingly. The true meaning of sovereignty, then, is not about control or domination. It is not about bending the world to our will, but rather about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life, with the creative forces that move through us. When we stand in the fullness of our being, we are not separate from the universe. We are one with it. The energy we radiate is the energy the world responds to. And when we radiate the energy of wholeness, of sovereignty, the world will mirror that back to us in ways both profound and transformative. In this final stage of individuation, we come to realize that the journey is not about achieving some external goal, some destination. It is about the process of becoming, of fully inhabiting our own lives, of claiming our rightful place on the throne of our own existence. It is about recognizing that we are not separate from the divine, but expressions of it. And when we come to this understanding, when we embody this truth, everything changes, not because the universe has changed, but because we have. The ultimate realization is this: we are not waiting for something or someone to give us permission to live our lives fully. We are not waiting for a sign, a savior, or a miracle. We are the creators of our own reality, the sovereign rulers of our inner worlds. The invitation has always been there, waiting for us to recognize it. And when we do, when we take our seat on the throne, everything shifts. We no longer seek, we no longer wait, we simply are. The Queen does not ask for what is already hers. She recognizes her power, her worth, and her sovereignty, not because of anything she has earned, but because it is her birthright. And in this recognition, she steps into the fullness of her being, her life, and her world. The path is not always easy, but it is always true. And when we step onto this path, when we claim our throne, we begin to walk in alignment with our highest self, the self that has always been waiting for us to remember. From this place of inner sovereignty, we not only transform our own lives, but we become a beacon for others, inviting them to step into their own power as well. This is the true power of sovereignty, not the ability to control or dominate, but the ability to stand in our own truth, to recognize our inherent worth, and to live our lives as the sovereign queens of our own existence. Like, share, and subscribe to continue this journey of self-discovery and transformation. Comment below and share your reflections on this path, for in this shared space we support one another's awakening to the truth of who we are.